Welcome to episode 2 of Back to the Roots, a Root for Wisconsin production of the Root for Wisconsin podcast network. I'm host producer Eric Fisher. Joining me, as always, on this show, Justin Dahl, the coach. Justin, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I am doing good. It's been a battle since the last time we talked on here, Eric.
That
Through
is a heck of a
coaching,
way to put
through
that.
parenting, through sickness, through it all, Eric. It's been just a battle. And in fact, right now I'm a scratchy throat kind of guy right now. So I apologize for that. But I am super pumped about this episode. We've got a lot of information to go through.
Yeah, I figured it was probably about time to get back on the road with this one where it's been a solid 2 months since we recorded. So the Christmas holiday came and went, and we had our Wisconsin network break, but it was time.
It's time. We're getting to the playoffs of girls state basketball and boys state basketball is a couple weeks away. Um, Still busy as ever, helping out the boys basketball team and Coach Russ Young here in Gillett. Had a big one last night, Eric. We took down Coleman, who's a very good team. Tied them for second in conference now. Against we're just behind. Well, let's back up. We're not just behind. We're a couple games behind powerhouse Crivets, who just got state ranked this week at 18-1. They just um, played a young man that we're gonna spotlight in our player spotlight. They just took their first loss to this team, Southern Door. So we're gonna spotlight this young man, and he is a phenomenal young man. Crivets is a phenomenal team. We've got girls state playoffs coming up, seeding meetings this weekend. We've got some things that you and I really want to touch on that touch home base to you with the UWGB Phoenix and some of the turmoil that's going on in that program and where they could go. And a team of the week that's kind of a surprise. Uh, then I wouldn't say they've really come out of left field, but it, they've slowly built themselves up to becoming a powerhouse. So I'm super excited about this, Eric.
Yeah, me too, Justin. So with that, let's get right into it. And we are starting in the college atmosphere. Ironically, we kind of go 2 shows in a row of talking about head coaches who are no longer with the program that they started the year with. Last episode, or the
Yeah.
first episode, I should say, we were talking with Cole the Crew and talking Badger football with the Paul Chris firing. Well, now we're flipping the script to some Green Bay men's basketball where Will Ryan, son of former Badgers great Bo Ryan, has been relieved of his duties in the season. And former Badger Freddie Owens has taken over as interim coach and got a huge win, his first career win as head coach. And a huge
Monster.
upset. You talk upset with Gillett Coleman. We're talking a massive upset in the college basketball work on Monday, and that was beating then first place Milwaukee Panthers in-state rival to knock Milwaukee to second place and get Green Bay their third win of the season. And a game that they were, I know this is more of a wholesome family show than maybe the Root for Wisconsin show, but just talking about, what it was they were a 16-point underdog. So pretty heavy underdog. Um, when it came to the betting world, they were, I think, 11% of all public money was only on them. So,
Yeah.
89% of people looking at this game thought Milwaukee was going to win. Myself included, driving to the studio to produce it. I was like, I don't bet on games that I work on, kind of the old industry standard, but
Yeah.
um I driving to the studio the other night, I'm like, I was expecting to wrap this up pretty quick. I didn't think there was gonna be a chance for him. And credit to my alma mater where they proved the doubters wrong. They proved me wrong. Um, Pretty much everybody outside the locker room they proved wrong, except that other 11%. But big win. They had a buzzer, well, not a buzzer beater, but a game tying three made by Davin Ziegler with 1.1 seconds left in regulation. And then Davin Ziegler stepped up once again, ended up being the game winner with 1.3 seconds left in regulation.
Unbelievable win for Freddie Owens. He does that in his hometown of Milwaukee. He goes back there and gets his first win as a D1 head coach, which is huge. A lot of home ties in this whole thing with Freddie and you and UWGB and the work that you do with them and the show and it was nice to see that happen. But we would be remiss. This doesn't happen if we don't talk about what happens before that.
Yeah, absolutely.
UWGB letting go Coach Will Ryan. Um, what it was like 2-22 or 2-19 at the time, I think it
At
was
the time,
when
I
they let him
believe
go.
it was 2-19. They were 2-22 when they went into that Milwaukee game. So I believe it was 2-19 or 2-18 to that, something to that effect. Coming
Yeah,
off of a awful loss, where I to be honest with you, I don't even remember the opponent. It was one of the nights I was not in studio, but a game that they were trailing only by 2 at halftime. It was 19-17 at halftime, and ended up losing 72-38 in that game.
I think it was IUPUI. I think it was or something like
No,
that.
no, that was last week. I believe it was. I want to say Robert Morris sticks out,
Oof. Yeah, that's not
or
good.
IPFW, one of the two.
Yeah, that's let's hope it's Robert Morris. IPFW is not. They're not good.
No,
No.
but
So
they're not IUPUI bad, but
no. Let's talk about now something that you and I really want to touch base on. What type of job is this now, Eric? What type of uh where does the program have to go? You and I might differ and we might agree on some of the things that that plagued Link Darner and what he wanted to do with the program. Some of the things that are plaguing Will Ryan, one of the biggest factors was attendance in where the program was at. The AD, Mr. Moon, was he cited that in the Green Bay Press Gazette, that being um, a factor. The attendance was not there. It was declining. The momentum of the program was going in the wrong direction. You and I have touched base on this on the main show over the last year about where this program is going, roster wise. Um, what type of job are we thinking here? Where do we got to go? Do we have to consider just strictly playing at the Resch? Do we have to bring this thing back to campus and strictly play at the Crest? I know that's a little weird to say back to back Resch and Crest, but one is a very nice small campus arena that would fit them attendance wise perfectly. On the flip side, what happens there? You're not going to really draw a big powerhouse program to come in and play you there. You have a better shot at that happening at the Resch because that team can sell tickets there. So
right. Well,
fundamentally, if you where you want to go with it, you have to say you want to stay at the Resch.
yeah, I'm gonna answer your first question. What kind of job is Green Bay? And I don't think that's an easy answer. Because you can kind of look at it two ways, and I think there are two ways to look at it. I think it's very much, the reality of the situation is it's a building block job. You look
Mm-hmm.
at the coaches who have come and gone, even most recently as Brian Wardle, who's now with Bradley, and you look at Todd Kowalczyk, who is with Toledo. Two very successful coaches in their own right, and had some great days with Green Bay. You look at Dick Bennett, who used the job as a springboard to bigger and better as well. So with that in mind and that concept in mind, I think it is a attractive enough job where if you can build a program and you have a league that is very player heavy in the sense that you're not getting many one and dones. I'd say very rarely are you going to ever have a one and done
Right.
truly in the Horizon League outside of the Patrick Baldwin Jr. situation last year with Milwaukee, which ended up costing his
Right.
father his job. Um, so in that regard, I think if you can, if you are committed to being a head coach and building a program, it's a very attractive job. I mean, Wisconsin, I think we've said on this program before and on our main show that Wisconsin is very much still a basketball recruit state. You look
Yeah.
at, where the state is for recruits that come out, even in the NBA. You look at there's a heavy Wisconsin contingency. Guys who end up going to big Power 5 schools, and girls for that matter. Wisconsin is a very attractive state for high school college basketball. Um, so again, like I said, if you're committed to building a program and building it and sticking with the ride, I think it's a very attractive job. I mean, you play in the state of Wisconsin, which you're probably going to get either with the Badgers or Marquette, as a non-conference opponent. Um, this sounds kind of backwards, but the success of the women's program does kind of get you in the door with some of these other schools as well, and get you into some of the other, like the Jersey Mike's Jamaican Classic this year, where you ended up playing Georgetown this year. The school does have some notoriety in that regard. You're only you're almost 10 years removed from an NCAA tournament appearance. You're 5 years removed from a CIT runner-up finish against Marshall. So you have building blocks there. You have, as you were kind of mentioning, you have two venues to play into as well to help you recruit. Excuse me. So you do have options. I think it's an attractive enough job, but it's also, you're not going to have a whole lot of interest in from, you're not going to bring in Tony Bennett unless he wants to wrap up his career with where he started his playing career.
Right. And
That's the reality of the situation. You're not having a top, like a Duke assistant coming in, like Marquette did with Wojo a couple years back. So your options may be a little bit more limited. You're probably looking a little bit more local, and we're kind of going to go through some of the coaching candidates here in a little bit. So that's what kind of job I think it is, Justin. But what say you as an outsider, someone who's not tied to the school as an alum, or tied to the school as someone who works for, covers the team, works for the team?
I honestly think UWGB has a identification crisis going on. They don't know where they want to play. They don't know how much money they want to spend. They don't know what they want to put into this program. All they know is that somehow they want it to be as good as the girls' basketball program. Where that falls is you're not just going to reluctantly have a coach who's coached here for how many ever years before he left to go to Michigan and then abruptly leaves Michigan to come back. That's not where this program is. You're not. The women are lucky in the fact that they have Borseth as their coach. I think they've identified that they probably have to pony up a little bit more to get a coach. I think this hire is incredibly important because when this happens now, when they hired their third head coach in 8 years, I believe it is, they're going to be paying 3 head coaches at one time. They are still paying off Link Darner. They're going to be paying off Will Ryan, and now they're going to be paying a new guy. The $175,000 per year base salary that they were paying Will Ryan, that's not going to get you in the door very, very far. There are a lot of assistant coaches that are making more than that, even at some of the lower tier, like the Missouri Valley Conference schools. If you're going to go and attack, some of the guys that have been rumored are some of Brian Wardle's assistants at Bradley. They're getting close to that amount of pay right now, or that pay, and they don't have to worry about all the headaches. They don't have to worry about all that stuff. Now, there's something to be said about running your own program and doing your own thing, right? And hiring your own people and recruiting your own players, right? So that might play into their advantage. I think um, three things with this job, Eric, and I guess really what I'm going to say is that I'm going to cover full circle with the type of candidate they've got to get. Their home run hire. They're have to go after and get is the hometown kid, the hometown guy. They have to offer him the bus because this guy is going to go into houses in our area and in our state, and he's going to get the best players that he could possibly get for the Horizon League, and that's Gary Gresch. They should have called him already. He just picked up his 300th win at St. Norbert College. This type of hire worked for UW Milwaukee. How many ever years ago when they hired Bo Ryan from Platteville? This is that type of hire. Gary Gresch is an alum. He is beloved by the people around here. He's beloved by people in the program. I think the last time when this job came up, his daughter was going to be just an incoming freshman. Uh, and she's played great at Notre Dame. I believe she's going to Wisconsin as a recruit. She's got one more year, and his son plays for him at St. Norbert. I am not sure what year he is there, Eric. Do
I
you
believe
know?
he's a redshirt sophomore or redshirt freshman, I believe. I
Okay.
believe he scored his first official college basket against Green Bay in an exhibition earlier this season.
Yeah. So Gary Gresch is the home run hire for UWGB, and I'm talking if they want to get him, and this is the guy they should want to get. This is you're talking big money because you're taking away some special memories that are going to happen to this man in just a matter of years. And I'm talking you're going to give this guy um, plane tickets to come back as fast as he can to come see his kids' last games, or to go and attend games or be late to games that the team buses to, or all of this. Whatever this man needs, UWGB should be doing that right now. Give him a $250,000 to $300,000 contract. Give him 5-6 years to build this thing back up. Give him the amenities outside of a base salary, like a plane ticket to go see his kids play, um, wherever they go when he can. Give this guy that, and then if it doesn't work out, at least you went for the home run. And there's not a fan or an alum that's gonna hold that against you because there's not one of you, Eric, that's saying don't go after this guy, right?
Yeah, just to kind of circle back, there's one thing before I talk about Gary Gresch, that I wanted to touch on, and that being, for the record, Garrett Gresch is a sophomore. I was wrong on that front, but just a ton of to touch base on. You had mentioned that Green Bay has a bit of an identity crisis, and we'll talk more. I know that we have this slated to talk more about where they're going to play, and that's a very big factor. That's been a big factor for probably the better part of the last 10 years, even when I was going to school there. This time 10 years ago is when I was a high school junior going into my senior year and deciding where I wanted to go to further my education. Obviously, not playing basketball or anything like that, but kind of taking into different factors, where can I get the best education? I knew I kind of wanted to go to sports media. Where am I going to have the best internship opportunities? Where am I going to have the best job opportunities, etc. And yeah, so that's 10 years ago. And that was even a hot button conversation then. So, like I said, we'll circle back to that. But to kind of go back in this identity crisis, and you don't know where you're playing on any given night, essentially. But you also have a program where fans are calling for you to play D2, which you're not going to do. I'm gonna just be real upfront with our listeners and our anybody who's attached to the program. The Green Bay men are not going to be a D2 program because they would the scholarships they would lose, and they're not going D2 for any other sport. So just the reality of the situation is they're going to stay in Division One. They're going to stay in the Horizon League until basically probably until the Horizon League would be no more. Um, maybe they would make a jump to Missouri Valley Conference, or depending on how the whole conference restructuring with all the Power Fives moving around ends up going. Well, that's a different conversation. But you have a program like you kind of alluded to with the women's program, where you are talking about a national powerhouse for mid majors, and then you have
Mm-hmm.
Green Bay men, where they are lacking
Stinker.
identity. They are, like I said, almost 10 years removed from an NCAA tournament appearance, where they kind of played spoiler in that conference tournament. It's not like they were the number one seed of that conference tournament going into it.
Right.
And ended up having a pretty tough draw. I think they were a 14 seed looking back, 3-14 against Texas A&M, and then got boat raced, as most would expect. But so you have to kind of find, what is your program going to be? Is it trying to build that powerhouse like the women have, or is it more of a transitional job, or are you trying to be the next Butler?
Mm-hmm.
That's a team that was in their conference when they went to the Final Four 2 years in a row. So you have different conversations. Even Loyola Chicago was in the Horizon League at one point in time and has gone on to bigger and better. So you have to figure out what to do. What's your identity of your program going to be? Is it going to be the Link Darner run and gun system that got them to be a top 5 team in the conference every year he was there? Is it going to be a continuation of the swing offense and kind of the copycat of Wisconsin and just being a little bit smaller, defensive, and working on those fundamentals? Is it going to be something totally different, kind of like what Brian Wardle ran, where it was kind of a hybrid of both?
Mm-hmm.
What is your system going to be? What is your identity as a roster going to be? How do you keep recruits coming here? Because this is the third straight year we talk about Will Ryan, where he had a totally different roster than what he had the year before. They had, I think, 3 guys who had played Division I basketball entering this season on their roster, 2 of which I believe were transfers.
Mm-hmm.
So all that in mind, or 4. It was 4 because they had 2 that stayed and 2 that had come in. So you had 4 guys who had Division I minutes coming into this season on your roster, which was the third straight year of doing that. You kind of get a pass for the new coach. Your first year, new coach, COVID restrictions, whatever. You can even kind of put that into the second year too. Guys like Amari Davis, who has bounced around college basketball now. PJ Pipes, who ends up leaving after that extra bonus year and goes and takes his 5th year elsewhere. So you can all not necessarily justify it, but you can kind of see, some of these guys leaving. And every year, especially with the NIL kind of being into effect, you're going to have a player or 2 leave probably. That's just the reality. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
much an instant gratification sport now. You're not having guys, unless you build and recruit based on that, who are going to want to stick it out all 4 years. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so to put that into the presence of who you're looking at as a coach, I think you hit the nail on the head. As somebody who covers the team, as an alum, I think Gary Resch obviously is the home run. Give him a blank check and whatever it takes. You think of the movie Draft Day, where Kevin Costner's character Sonny Weaver has the sticky note of nobody else but this. Um, it's a clear night and day. You have the alum factor, a guy who shut down Jason Kidd in the
Mm-hmm.
NCAA tournament under Tony Bennett. You have that factor. You have the fact that, I mean, he's
He's
going to
got cachet.
he's got cachet around the area. He gets some of the best Division III teams. They're in a first place tie at St. Norbert right now. I'm looking at their website, their roster right now. They've had all these different Division III and NCAA tournament appearances, multiple, Final Four appearances in the Division III. So you have one hell of a resume built up there. And you talk about the record coming into the year and in his all-time wins record. You have so much going there where it's such a slam dunk that he's now interviewed. This, I believe, will be his 3rd time interviewing, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he had interviewed when they ended up hiring Link Darn after Brian Wardle left. I don't think that conversation went as far,
Yeah,
but
he went. I think they had. Just a side note. I think they also interviewed Greg Gard for that job too.
they may have. At that same time, it was right before he took over the the men's
Yes.
program at Wisconsin. But so you got to look at who you're going to be interviewing. Like I said, I think that's a slam dunk. Write the blank check and make him say no. But
Right.
don't let him say no. Offer him the plane ticket so he can go down to Madison, or hell, I'd even say offer him a scholarship for his kid if that's what it takes. He can be a,
Mhm.
a bench guy, and if that's what it takes to get him here, that's not. I don't think that's a deal breaker by any means.
Right. He's got cachet within the program. He's got cachet within our local uh, district because he's been coaching AAU basketball for his kids for so long now that throughout the whole circuit, people know this guy now. He's got 300 wins, Eric, as a college basketball coach. He's young enough. He's got the looks, the personality to take us places. Um, I think it's a home run hire. Now, who do you think are some of the other candidates?
Well, I know this is a name that we've tossed around as well. If you throw everything at Gary Gresham and he ends up still saying no, like he did 2 years ago or 3 years ago, when they ended up hiring Will Ryan, I think candidate number 1B has to be Joe Krabenhoff at Wisconsin. Has
That's
to.
an that is one of the four names that I have down. That is an interesting name. He comes from South Dakota. He was a highly four-star recruited kid out of South Dakota. He was a big get for Gary Close, uh, a former assistant for Bo Ryan back in the day. High Sox Krabenhoff. Many of Badger fans will remember him. He's now the associate head coach for Greg Gard down at Madison. It would take a lot to get him, and we've talked about in your warm up to this. What type of coach are we going to get? We're not going to get a big time assistant coach from a Duke or from a Kentucky or something like that. Now, Wisconsin is not those programs, but they're not far away. They're not that far away. I mean, the history of the program is probably not as great, obviously, as those, but where they stand today in program, they're not that far away. So it would take a lot to get that guy. Joe Krabenhoff would be a great 1B hire. It would be awesome.
Here's what Joe Krabenhoff brings and why I say he's 1B. If like I said, if you throw the metaphorical bus at Gary Gresham, he ends up saying no. I'm pretty content in the D3 game. If that's the route he chooses to go, he wants to stay at St. Norbert with his kid, and for whatever reason they don't offer the kid the scholarship, and whatever, he doesn't even have to move if he takes that Green Bay job. He
Right.
hops across the
Yeah.
river and whatever. But the
Grabs
benefit
a
of Joe,
couple Hondo and
the benefit of Joe Krabenhoff, and why I say he's 1B, is he has experience at both the mid-major level, where he was a graduate assistant, and I believe even an assistant. He went back to South Dakota State, I believe. Yeah, South Dakota State was an assistant coach there for a while. It looks like after he'd played.
yeah, he was a video guy, a video coordinator for Bo Ryan back in the day, I believe.
Yeah, so his official Wisconsin bio: player from '05 to '09, rejoined the Badgers in a coaching role after spending 3 seasons as an assistant coach at South Dakota State. And with Krabenhoff on the bench, Jackrabbits had earned a 12 seed in the 2016 tournament after clinching the automatic bid in the Summit League tournament. So what that says to me, he knows the mid-major game. He knows, a mid-major. Let's call him a mid-major powerhouse. They've been really
Mm.
good in this last 10 years, essentially, since he had been there. So he knows the mid-major market. He has the resources available where he's been experienced with that. But he's also got the state of Wisconsin, where he's a prominent figure in the state of Wisconsin at this point. I mean, you
Mhm.
look at how Greg Gard served under Bill Ryan for so long. One thing that stuck with me about Greg Gard and his role as an assistant coach when he was is you watch every senior video where they do the ceremony. And I remember Jason Bohannon's class really kind of stuck this with me. And I think that was actually Krabenhoff's class too. Is the amount that obviously they thank Coach Ryan, but they thank Greg Gard and the assistants as well. And by having that role and having kind of Krabenhoff in that role, seeing it both as a player, seeing the mid-major side, now seeing the Power 5 role, I think that's a very good get as well. If Gresh says no, I think it goes Gresh, a pretty sizable gap, and then Krabenhoff. But the benefit of Krabenhoff also is that you can still run a modified version of what you're running. You can keep the kids that you had recruited and keep some roster continuity that you haven't had since Link Darner.
Right.
You're running the swing.
That with Krabenhoff, that's the biggest bonus is you don't have to totally abandon the system in which you have. You've got a fresh face coming in that can build on what is there. Now, what is there and what is happening has led you now to 3-22. So there's so much to be said for that. Now, let's talk about some guys that are behind the pack here that would be that have a little bit of Wisconsin ties to them. That would be some good hires. One is currently coaching them right now in Freddie Owens. I think this is as much of a job interview as it was for Jim Leonard for the Madison football program, right? So Freddie Owens has to be considered for this position. He's got cachet. He's a former Badger. He's the assistant coach, now the interim head coach, running the system. I don't know that he's a serious candidate in the fact that he's also part of the problem that has led us to a 3-22 season, that has led us to 3 complete roster changes. I don't know that he's a serious candidate. Another one that has some Wisconsin ties, coached for Bo Ryan, is close to Will Ryan. Took the University of Ohio Bobcats to the tournament, I believe, and that's Saul Phillips. Coaching currently at Northern State. At one point was a hot name in the coaching market to get bumped up to a P5. He didn't jump at the chance, and it cost him. Now he's down in D2, and we've went that market now two hires in a row, D2 back up. Saul Phillips has some cachet within the state that would play in that. I think those are some names that will get some traction to start this thing off. It's just up to the program to pony up to get these top 2 guys, either one of these top 2 guys, to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said it before, I'll say it again. You have to start with Gary Gresh. That has to be your number one option that you leave no doubts on. One other name I want to throw into the mix, and another with Green Bay ties, is Jimmy Foster, an assistant at Bradley, who had been with Brian Wardle's staff here when he was here, and had built that Green Bay team and built the regular season powerhouse of Green Bay. Was there to mentor Alec Brown, Alphonso McKinney, Kiefer Sykes, guys who ended up having a cup of tea in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And Alec Brown, but that's a different conversation. I'm going to stay positive here. He was a draft pick, second round. He was a second round draft pick, so I'll say that. But guys who he was there for and had that time at Green Bay, they had 95 victories with Coach Wardle. They were a very good program. They were perennially, if they didn't make the NCAA tournament, they were an NIT team 2 or 3 years ago. They were a team that made the CIT even on a quote unquote bad year. So that'd be a good get too. But just just kind of ultimately, I think that would be another one that I would throw a name at. Would be Jimmy Foster. He's currently serving as the co-associate head coach at Bradley.
I think both of those assistants have been rumored as candidates for the GB job at one point. When this job opened up, I think they were both hot button topic candidates right away. Which would be, if you go through all of our candidates here and we have to get down to that part, nobody thought Todd Kowalczyk was going to take the job or get a job, or who Todd Kowalczyk was when we were looking for a head coach at that point, and we got him. So you got to find a Todd Kowalczyk. Now, I've got a big question because I'm excited about this because this is a far out there novel idea, and these things only happen once in a blue moon, Eric. But if there was a retread coach that was looking to resurface back in the game to kind of write his image, kind of like a Rick Pitino at Iona, is there a guy out there that you could think of that would kind of venture up to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and take that job for a couple hundred thousand, and try to rewrite his name and rewrite his basketball coaching chops? I've got one.
I want to hear who you have first. You introduce it. Let me think on this for a second. Who do you got?
I've got one that isn't necessarily a guy that needs to write his image, but it does have to kind of show his coaching chops, and it's Steve Wojciechowski. You said his name. He's got cachet because he's coached at one of the top two programs in the state, at Marquette for 5-6 years. He's obviously a guy that could come in here in 3 years or 2 years or 1 year because of his name. He could get some impact transfers, write his image, and turn this thing around real fast. And all of a sudden, that happens, Eric. All of a sudden, what happens to the program, right? It becomes a true desirable job. So do you, if you're the program, do you go out and you say, all right, we're going to shell out almost $1 million here in the next 3 years because we're going to pay 3 coaches. Let's go for it and see if this one guy, and if we don't go for it, then whatever, right? We played our hand, we tried, but if we could go get a guy that could turn this program around and he ditches us in 2 years, but all of a sudden we've got, we're selling out the Resch again, and we're going to get we're going to get Wisconsin to come and play at the Resch, and there's going to be 8,000 people that fill that thing. And all of a sudden, maybe Cincinnati wants to come and play. Maybe Northwestern wants to come and play, or Minnesota takes a short drive over, right? So if you could think of it that way, if that's the type of thing you could do, I mean, because look what's happening with Iona, right? So look what's happening with Xavier. Now the Big East is a P5 program, and Sean Miller's a big time coach, but he had trouble at Arizona, and he needed a landing spot real quick to write his image. And now look they're leading the Big East in 1 year, Eric, 1 year. So I think that has to be a real option.
Yeah, if I'm administration of the program, I'm still hitching my wagon to Gary Gresch. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is no doubt about it. But that's a name I would possibly explore. Here's another one for you, Justin, just because I was a name that when you propose a question besides Wojo, uh, a name that I kind of thought of right away, and I had to make sure he wasn't coaching this year, and he's not. But Tom Crean, a guy who has those
Yeah.
Wisconsin ties, had been a head coach at Marquette before, and has been in the Big Ten at Indiana. Has some cachet with his family being technically part of the Harbaugh tree as well in the football world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it'd be a name to throw out there. By no
Flaked
means,
out at Georgia, but
he's
he's a
from
top tier
Michigan.
coach. There would be kids that are on the outs of other programs that would come and look at this program because of him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's coached the mid-major game. He's a two-time um, Conference USA Coach of the Year back when he was coaching. I believe that was with his Marquette days, early Marquette days. Um, and then he's won Big Ten Coach of the Year as recently as 2016, two-time Big Ten regular season champion. Has reached a Final Four back in 03 with Marquette in the Dwayne Wade years. So there's a lot of, I think, cachet with that name too. Do I think it happens? Hell no. But it'd be a
No,
name if he wanted to come to Green Bay and that was the route to go. Sure, I'd be interested in, kind of like you said, you're paying almost $1 million for three coaches. You might as well get someone who can build the thing up in 2-3 years and flip
flip
that
it quick.
script. And then, maybe at that time, if that's the case and Coach Gresh said no and wanted to wait until his son was out of school, maybe that's the time that you look at it, kind of a transitional, knowing the reality of the situation, fill the Resch up instead of playing at the Crest, which we can kind of transition to here because that was an interesting conversation that you and I were having earlier today in our kind of pre-production meeting, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. Is what is the state of these two arenas and where do they benefit the most from playing? Both venues, the Crest and the Resch, and I'll call it the Resch District for that matter, or the Titletown District, because you've got to factor in the history of the Brown County Arena as well. And Shopko Hall, you've got to factor in that as well. What is the identity? Where are these teams going to play? There are benefits, I think, to both sides of the coin. I think, and you look at where the women's team, they play primarily at the Crest. You look at, the state of high school basketball. Girls state is at the Resch. You can get attendance in there, and that's a very big draw for a recruit. You look around the Horizon League. The other schools in the Horizon League don't necessarily have those same facilities as the quote unquote
Correct.
big time 10,000 seat arena, which unfortunately is often empty. You get a couple thousand, once in a while you'll get I think the program record is the 2013 game against the Badgers, which sold it out. I think it was 9,000 and change. Um, fit
It's a
in
great
there.
game. I was there.
I was not there. I was at the game where a couple weeks later they ended up beating Tony Bennett in Virginia in
Yep.
his turn to the Resch. But an all time great game with, you look at some of the best to come through the programs, both respectively programs, in the last 20 years. You had Kaminsky, you had Decker, you had Gosser, you had Sykes and Brown and McKinney and I think Carrington Love was a sophomore playing big minutes at the time.
Yeah.
So you had some big names. Jordan Faust, who's one, I get this reminder every year because I screenshotted on Twitter when it happened. He is the only college player to ever have 1,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, 600 steals, 600, just
Yeah.
the list of stats that he had as a college player. And you don't see that because you don't get a whole lot of the guys who stay for all 4 years. But where we're kind of going with this, but you used to have the super sectional for the trip to state for the was it Division 1, Division 2
Mm-hmm.
at the Brown County Arena. You had that going on. You have every year the Sundrop Classic is played at the Crest Center. So you have
Mm-hmm.
two venues that have significant basketball being played at them. Um, Now, is it better to fill a 4,000 seat arena and make it, if you're getting 2,000, 3,000 people, is it better to have that look full in a very state of the art facility, but not quite to that big arena feel?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you go forward with the big arena feel and just build on, hey, your job is to fill the son of a gun up?
That's to answer your question, and to be honest, the type of coach that you're going to hire is going to tell you that answer. Gary Gresh is the type of coach that you're going to hire for the long-term stability of the program. That has to happen. To me, that has to happen at the Crest. The long-term viability of the program is to keep building up on the Crest. ever changing the crest to make it more than what it is, so that the Resch is not. If you're going to go for the now and the here and the big cachet, the Krabenhof or the Tom Green or the Wojciechowski, you're going to stay at the Resch because you want to sell it now, right? Because at that time, if that guy could sell it now, if he can build it now, then you're going to come back in 2 to 3 years when he leaves for a bigger job. You're going to come back and you're going to say, well, now I can go get that big time assistant. Now I've got money in my pocket to play with because this guy is filling stands. So at that point is another question: can we go long term with this big time assistant, or do we go short term again and find the retread? Because we've got cachet and we've built this thing so fast with transfers. To me, I'm long term, Eric. I'm a high school basketball coach. I'm a high school football coach. I think long term, I'm building kids up right now in 7th and 8th grade to be a stable program for the longevity of the program for as long as I'm there. Right. So to me, it's Gary Resch and the Cress.
I think the true answer is it's gotta be a little bit of both. And I know that's a little bit of a cop out. I know
I do
that's a cop
not
out.
like that.
I just think the reality of the situation is you have to have games at both. I think for your conference season, you
But then
should
you're not identifying. You're not identifying yourself.
I
Like, what
understand.
is Gonzaga? Gonzaga was a nothing program before Munson got there and built it, right? And
Sure.
so they've steadily built their program, built their facilities up to become the national powerhouse they are. Now, is that to say that Green Bay should do that? No. But you also have to consider the Resch is already 20 years old. The the Resch the Resch is a decapitating building. It's not the most prettiest thing anymore. It's the best quality it has, Eric, is that it's across the street from Lambeau. Really. And so you have this beautiful 4,000 feet or seat venue sitting on your campus, helping you sell your campus, helping sell recruits to what you are as a program. It's Green Bay is a commuter program, right? It's a commuter program. It's a commuter school, and that's what it should be. Unless you get a guy like Kowalczyk and Wardle that can go down into Milwaukee and go down into Chicago and pull a kid out that nobody has found miraculously down there, like a Kiefer Sykes or Jordan Faust or a Carrington Love or whatever, right?
So
So
I'm gonna ask you this real quick, Just not to cut you off, but if you're gonna talk about building your identity and your history of your program, how can you move away from a facility, that yes, it doesn't necessarily have the history because it was the Brown County Arena. Is that your calling card ultimately that hey, this was a different building where this all happened? Is that your kind of your cop out? Because the other flip side of it, I mean, you look at the different attendance, the season ticket holders for the two different programs, the men and the women, where is a night and day different demographic for the people who are going to travel out to campus, which is admittedly out in the middle of nowhere. Essentially, it's on the far side
mhm,
of Green Bay, going towards Door County,
mhm.
where you do have that quote unquote downtown feel, with the stadium district where you can meet your buddies before the game at one of the stadium bars and then go, to the game and have a night on the town like that. Do you lose that in your season ticket holders? Do you lose that calling card of hey, this is where our history was. This is where we beat Wisconsin in 2009. This is where we almost, we beat Virginia. This is where we made an NCAA tournament appearance. This is across the street essentially from the glory days of Green Bay men's basketball.
What needs to happen, Eric, is you need to get students to attend games. Now, I get what you're trying to say, and it's right in the district, and there's places to go, things to do right there. I get that. I understand. But I want you to understand. I want to, if I'm the coach, I want to sell what we are, where we're going, not what we were. You want to enjoy those things. They're still here. Like, sure, we're on the other side of town, but this is a great venue. We have great facilities for a mid-major program, and we need to sell them and continue to grow them. And you can be a part of that for the next 4 to 5 years. So I'm more worried about selling to recruits than I am to selling to fans right now. Because as we know, if you win, they fill the seats. They'll fill the seats no matter what, wherever you play.
That's
You need
a fair point. I totally agree with you in that capacity. I think, what should happen versus what will happen. I think the reality situation is they probably will play at least a handful of games at the Resch,
no doubt about it.
especially when you have that game against Milwaukee, it'll probably be at the Resch,
Yep.
and you hope to get a couple of those early season. Maybe you can get a team like a Cincinnati, or maybe even
Xavier.
Xavier. Maybe even you can get Butler to come back, or Loyola Chicago to come back.
Northern Iowa. There's a bunch of Drake and all these
Bring back
other.
Bradley,
Yeah, Bradley.
Toledo. There's ways to do it. I think you can make that happen where you can dedicate and you can kind of keep the season ticket holders happy. But I do know, and I can speak from experience on this, as somebody who I was on the student government at Green Bay in my time as a student there, and made a big point, and I was on the cabinet, if you will, um, and made a big point to get games back to the Crest Center for the men's basketball team, and in the hurdles that were initially faced. Um, One big hurdle, which kind of went away, and why they had to play at the Resch for so long, was because of the neutral site, or the campus site Horizon League tournament. Due to NCAA regulations or whatever for men's basketball, you had to have an arena that had so many seats. So
Mhm.
that was part of that. You also didn't have a beer license for insurance sake at the Crest Center for a long time. And that was a big drawing card as to why you had it at the Resch for the men's team. And now that they do have that for both, I'm happy to say I was a big proponent and creator of what started as Rock the Resch is now the annual Crash the Crest game.
Mhm.
And I was on that committee to start that. It is a very big accomplishment that I like to brag about as an alum. That is one of the bigger turnout games of the year for the program. So with that in mind, I think the goal to get students there is to keep it on. I know that there's challenges, especially when you're not winning games. Yes, the tickets are free, but why are you going to waste an hour and a half, 2 hours going to across campus to go watch a team lose?
Mhm.
So I definitely understand that either way you have to kind of build that relationship back with your student body,
Mhm.
and you ultimately have to work on even just having a coach that focuses on your general student population as well, because you do have one of the lower enrollments in the league.
Mhm.
So you have to work with that, with your AD and with your dean of students and with your chancellor as a coach, to be a frontward facing coach and be the person, the face of that university. Get the enrollment back up. I shouldn't say back up. Green Bay is a program, as a University of Wisconsin school, that is one of the few school, I believe the only school in the last 10 years that is consistently growing in enrollment. But it's still one of the smallest in the Horizon League, which is one of these smaller mid-major conferences out there.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
I think we hit all topics on this one, Eric.
I
We
think
spent
so.
a boatload of time on that one, my friend.
I
You really wanted to talk about that. You were really hot on this topic going into it.
Yeah, I didn't expect to spend the first long chunk of time here on this.
Yeah.
But I think it does. We talk about the Back to the Roots show, and we talk about the college basketball world also affecting the high school world.
Mhm.
And another new head coach. I remember our conversation with Cole the Crew, and you look at the way that it affects recruiting, the way that affects your state of play, which we can kind of transition to here. As of right now, I believe their signing class that Will Ryan had is all still committed to staying here.
Yeah.
That
Specific
being,
the Klesmit kid from
yep,
Nina.
and all signs point to all three kids staying here right now. They've all, obviously it's going to depend on the coach and the system that comes in, but as of it stands today, that hasn't affected them wanting to leave. And I think that's a big calling card. You look at the guys playing right now, you know, guys like Devin Ziegler, who's a Bowling Green and then a JUCO transfer, who, you have to keep them here. But you also have to build your new roster and build your new system and recruit. Like you said, if you do go Greg Resch or you do go Joe Krabenhoff, what's that going to look like in the high school living rooms, and how does that translate to, hey, maybe I'm only staying here 2-3 years, or am I staying here to build a program?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
with that, Justin, why don't we get into the high school game and talk some high school sports here?
Yeah. I'm excited about this. Um, Normally, Eric, we would have a interview lined up to talk with a guest. This is what we want to do with the program. We could not quickly line one up. We have one. He was just this guest was not available that worked for our time slot here this week. So hopefully we can nail him down for next week. Um, would be a superb guest again for our second guest. So with that, with no guest, we'll jump into our team of the week. Uh, it makes me proud to say I've coached against this team a couple times. Most recently, it actually probably, now that I think about it, was my last game I ever coached against, or coached a girls basketball game to date against Sevastopol, the Sevastopol girls basketball team, the Sevastopol Pioneers, Eric, way up there in Door County. This program has completely turned around with Coach Ben Ricola, that they are now 19-1 in the Packerland Conference. They own a 3-game lead. They are ranked number 4 in Division 5 state by WISports.com, which uh, for all purposes, uh, all of our information we get, or I get, that put forth on this program, back to the roots. I love WISports. Go to WISports. Use WISports. They're a great outlet for high school sports to see and use. So all of our stats that we get are from WISports. Um, the rankings come from WISports. There are coaches poll that is put out by WISports. So uh, just a side note that covers our butt there, Eric. Um, But yeah, Sevastopol, their only loss currently is to what is going to be a conference championship in Bondwell of the CWC East, which is the Central Wisconsin Conference. Bondwell is a powerhouse program under Jerry Reinke. I've played against him plenty of times. He is a superb coach. But they lost that game 60-52 at home. Bondwell is a 16-4 basketball team that is vying for a number 1 seed in Division 4. Also made the sectional championship game. One of the most heartbreaking ways to lose a game to go to state. If you can find it, look it up. It's about a 35-footer that was launched by one hand, and as the buzzer goes off, it goes in, and Westfield goes to state. Heartbreaking for Jerry. I feel for Jerry. Hopefully he can turn that around this year and take his team to state. But Sevastopol is going to win the Packerland Conference, Eric. Um, they've got some good wins over Oconto at O'Connell. They beat O'Connell, who is 16-6. They beat them by 27 in O'Connell. They beat a 13-6 Mellon team. They beat a Two Rivers team. They are completely undefeated in conference, lead it by 3 games. They are led by Bailey and Naomi Ricola, the daughters of Coach Ben Ricola. Bailey, a senior, is averaging 16.3 points per game, and Naomi at 13.6 per game. So our shout out and our team of the week is to the Sevastopol Pioneers girls basketball program, Eric.
Yeah, real quick, Justin. I know that I very openly am not as plugged into the high school game as you are, but I got to say the Pac-Line Conference is a conference that is near and dear to me, as a conference that I had covered actually on 2 different occasions. Once when I was studying the broadcast world, where I was calling games for WOCO out of Ocano, for the Blue Devils program and for Gillette. And then also my first job out of college was covering the various schools of the Packerland Conference in Door County Daily News, now the news sports media up in Door County. So a lot of attachment here for me, and I love the Packerland Conference. I would argue one of the better sports conferences in the state on a year in year out basis. You look at some of the schools in there. Algoma with Coach Zug is a coach that near and dear to me. Genuinely one of the greatest people I've ever gotten to work with. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the Southern Door program, another one of those programs that has had some ups and downs as of late for the girls' side of basketball, but another program that just seems to always be in the mix no matter what sport it is: baseball, football, basketball, softball, you name it, they're around. Oconto, a school that obviously you have your ties to, you're an alum. Peshtigo, a school that used to be in the MNO that I had played against, and then also Sevastopol. You mentioned the daughters of the coach. I want to mention a third player here, and that is their third leading scorer, someone who actually was a co-worker of mine, one of his daughters, and that being one Kayla Ranley, the 5'5" guard, who is a sophomore, who cracked her way into the lineup, averages 10 a game. Uh, Really just another one of those, I had known her when I was working in Door County, and her dad, Chris, awesome guy. I love Chris. So I had to shout her out here as well. Just a program that, had some of those, was probably overshadowed by Gibraltar at one time, by Southern Door, by Algoma, by Kiwani, even my time up there. But has kind of endured and kind of built that team up, built that program up, and made their mark here. And now we're a fourth ranked program in the state, making that push to hopefully get a 1 seed and make that trip to Green Bay, the our south trip to the Resch.
I had a great conversation with Coach Ben Ricola when we got to play up there. He was currently in his second year when we played each other after we got bounced out. That was the COVID year, Eric. So we played games after we got bounced out. We got bumped up a division into Division 4, I believe. I think Division 4. So
I remember
after we
talking about this on the main show, and some of the politics that went into that, and having some
yeah
better off camera conversations, but
yeah. So I remember talking to Coach Ben. He's done a great job. Uh, he's been coaching that sophomore group with his youngest daughter, I believe, since they were fifth, sixth graders. So
I
he's
believe
taken
that's
them. He's taken them all the way through. Um, his daughter Bailey, she was a sophomore when we played her. She was a nice player back then too. Um, so Coach Ben has done a great job. As the Packerland Conference, as you were talking about, traditionally a strong conference. When you talk about some of the coaching names that are in there, you talk about Coach Zug Zastrow, one of the top coaches in the state. Lynn Geyer, a top coach in the state championship coaches. You're talking Jeff Sundstrom, who has competed at the college level with UW Marinette. Uh, just you could go on and on. Uh, so it's a tough conference when you talk about coaches. The conference, unfortunately, has kind of um, seen better days over the last couple years. Not traditional powerhouses within the conference. Um, like Kiwani is just 7-13 this year. Algoma's got an under 500 record. Southern Doors right around 500. So the traditional powerhouses of the conference are not uh, kind of living up to their name. O'Connell winning the conference last year. Sevastopol coming in this year. It's a really, 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 really young conference. I just watched. My old JV coach is the JV coach for O'Connell this year, or the last 2 years. I just watched Kiwani play at O'Connell, and Kiwani starts two freshmen and two sophomores, and O'Connell starts two freshmen and two sophomores, or a freshman and two sophomores, and we're talking about a sophomore in Sevastopol, and Algoma's a really young basketball team. So traditionally, that conference has been super strong. I believe at one point they brought two teams to state when it was first going to the Resch
They
in
had the
Kiwani and Algoma.
Kewaunee County, all Kewaunee County State. When you throw in Luxembourg, Casco made that appearance that year as well.
Hmm
That was my senior year of high school. Your first year at Gillette.
hmm Was an amazing event. Uh, Place was packed. So if
Full
we're
of
going to
neon
talk about the
t-shirts.
Resch and where state basketball should be, we're not going to talk about the Crest, especially if we get all Kiwani County teams in. Um, but uh, my point is that that conference is going to pick it up because they're playing a lot of young kids. It's been on a slide the last couple of years, but that conference is going to turn around real fast with all these young kids. And Sevastopol looks like they might have some staying power with Coach Ben and some sophomores that are leading the top 2 out of 3 scorers of the program. So that's a big one. Good for Sevastopol. I'm happy for Coach Ben Ricola. I'm happy for Sevastopol, who's kind of been a cellar dweller for a long time. Even when they jumped down, they've always been on that enrollment line of 200. I think they're sitting at 176 kids this year, so they're well within D5. Moving down to D5 really helps them. Playing in the Pack and Land Conference, coming into the regional that we're in when I was coaching, really helps them. It prepares them to be playoff ready. So, uh, team of the week, Eric, Sevastopol Pioneers girls basketball.
All right, Justin, that leads us to our player spotlight of the week. And we're staying in the Packerland Conference for this one. So why don't you introduce this one as well?
This is amazing. We haven't seen in our area from Door County to Brown County to O'Connell, Marinette County to Shawano County a player um, that can score it like this. Sophomore from Southern Door, Drew Douse, um, is averaging this year currently 32.9 points per game, Eric. Unbelievable. He played 42 games, his first 42 games of his high school career, freshman and sophomore year. He hasn't finished his sophomore year, Eric. And this young man's broken 1,000 points already. He's at 1,120 points through 45 games in his high school career. We haven't seen in our area, north of Green Bay, we haven't seen a player like that since the great Anthony Pieper score it like that. So, um, our player spotlight is a young man that is a rising star within the state. He's the third leading scorer in the state, which is shocking, but he I've watched him a couple times. Krivitz just played him. Krivitz was undefeated going into it, and he was outstanding. He was phenomenal. You, it's hard to stop this guy. Uh, he's a 6'1" sophomore. I don't know. I don't know what else you say about this guy, Eric. Uh, he just he just lights it up. You can't. You could probably put he scored 33 points against Krivitz. Krivitz was 18-0 going into the game, Eric. 18-0. Krivitz has 265 kids that they score. They just had a kid. Krivitz just had a kid the other night go over 1,000 points themselves, and he scores 33 points against them like hot butter going through or hot knife going through butter. Right? This guy is unbelievable. If you get a chance to watch this young man, you got to get out there and watch him.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about the great Anthony Pieper has the state record at 3,391 points. Next closest after that, you have Mickey Crow from St. Nazianz at 2,724. Mike Kaler from Elkhart Lake, Sam Decker fourth at 2,593, and Sam Oakey from Cassville rounding out the top 5 all time. Yeah, Drew Doust, you can't just another, we were talking about this the other day, a family that knows basketball and
Yeah.
and seemingly just the genetics in that family, all phenomenal athletes and all phenomenal basketball players for that Southern Door program. And now it's Drew's turn and really turning things up in the Packerland and really kind of getting some eyes on that program across the state as a sophomore and potentially could be on this leaderboard here. You mentioned the 42 games and just crossing the 1,000-point threshold, on pace to at the very least, I'd say, kind of join the top 60, which as far as with sports goes. Most recently was joined after last year's class with Connor Taylor out of Leon Albino at the
Oh,
60th
yep.
rank, and that's 1,129 points. So very well could be on pace to that. Obviously, you hope for health and everything that kind of goes that way as well. Also, Seth Trimble from Menominee Falls, class of 2022 as well, at 2,020 points as well for him. Um, and one more, Derek Lindhart from Partyville at 39 all time in the state, 2,051 points. So
Unbelievable.
you look at some company that young man is in and some of these great players to come through the state and really, you look at some of these other names of just kind of scrolling through the list. You look at Diamond Stone and how much of a prospect he was, Henry Ellenson, Sam Decker, just so many names you can kind of flip through here. Johnny
Well, even
Davis,
Tyler Hero, Tyler
uh,
Hero was.
but um,
That's not this show. That's not this show, Eric.
I understand that, but Trevor Anderson, the one-time Green Bay Phoenix, just tie it all together in
Yeah.
that top 10 category as well for all-time scoring. Jordan McCabe, the Kakana product, and Ryan Dussler, another member of that Wasaki team, class of '97. Ryan Dussler at 11th all-time in the state, 2,354 points.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how well this young man can put her in a hoop. He's fun to watch. You appreciate watching him as soon as you turn it on. I mean, whenever you can, do it. I don't know how else to say it. Like, Eric, have you watched this guy yet?
I have not, no.
Eric, you gotta turn him on and say, "Wow," because he doesn't wow you in the athleticism factor of it. He doesn't wow you in much else athletically. He just wows you in the way that he can get a shot up, that he can get a shot in, and accomplish what he's trying to accomplish. He's very um, I don't really know the exact word I'm trying to think of. He's very efficient. He's very efficient with the ball when it's in his hands. So Drew Douse, man, go watch him. He's
Yeah,
probably going to be a D1 kid uh, in our area playing ball for sure.
well, maybe Gary Gresh or Coach Krabenhoff might be able to make a pitch for him.
There you go.
As a freshman, averaged 19.1 and 3.9 assists. Uh, the official bio for him on his sports page: good athlete with deep shooting range, can get to the basket and finish at will. Uh, Says it all, I think, if you ask me.
Yep, no doubt
Uh,
about it.
so yeah, hats off to our athlete of the week, Drew Doust from Southern Door, another Packerland product. And what comes after this, Justin? What do you got for us next?
It's exciting time, Eric. Now you're talking to a former head girls basketball coach now, and we are closing down the regular season. That means one thing. This Saturday is the last date that you have to get games in, to get them recorded, to be considered for seeding, because seeding comes out on on Sunday. Teams will be watching. Uh, the, the WIA has created this watch party thing, this display now with the automatic seating, the computer seating that they have. They don't have a panel. They just punch a bunch of stats in and pushes it out. So bunch of teams will be at their own watch parties this Sunday, and we're going to cover some of our local teams here, Eric, uh, in some of the favorites, some of the sectionals that are going to be hard for some teams to go over, um, that are in our area, that would be some great watches. Now, what do you think we're going to start it off with, Eric?
Well, Justin, I think we're gonna have to start it off with are we going in our direct area? Or are we going like the greater Green Bay Fox
Oh,
River
Greater Green Bay.
area? Well, I think we're gonna
Oh,
have to
no.
look at that the Division 1 seeding of Nina and Hortonville.
Yeah, that's going to
The-
be a beautiful, beautiful thing. Okay, now I'm just double checking my things here, Eric, because I do not believe. Okay, they are in the same section. They are in the same sectional, but I think they're on the flip side. Okay, so semifinal is at El Claire Memorial, and the other semifinal is at Oshkosh North. So I don't know how they split this. Like when they drew these up, Eric, on my paper right
Mhm.
here. When they drew those up, I don't know how they split them up and how many teams go which and where. Um, but obviously Hortonville at 19-2, um, who has upset Nina, who keep keep Nina in mind. There might be something coming up. Little sneak for the Back to the Roots podcast. Nina might come up here within a week or two. Nina has been a top 5 D1 program all year. Nina lost a heartbreaker to Hortonville, just a flat heartbreaker to Hortonville on a last second layup that was a beautifully drawn up play by Coach Andy Brownell of Nina. Girl has a wide open layup. They used the great um, player from, she was our player spotlight um, from last time, the Zybel girl. Used her as a decoy. He threw it up over the top at the rim. Girl has, Eric, you're in Green Bay, and I'm in my hometown of Gillette now. And there wasn't a girl that was that close to her for the layup. I'm telling you. And she just missed it. She just missed it. Happens. You get too excited in the moment and you just miss it. Um, so that would have won the game for them. But you know it's going to come down again. These two teams are going to meet again, and they're
They're
going to
meeting
play
Friday
again.
night.
They're going to meet again. I mean, in the big time.
Sure.
They're probably going to meet for a conference championship here, but they're going to meet in the big time to go represent for state. On the flip
After
side,
after last year's rematch, let's talk about that for just a quick second. After last year's uh contested ending of that game,
yes,
which is
yes,
very controversial as well in the state of Wisconsin.
with a different coach and Coach Celeste Hoish, um, who got a tech. She got a technical, I believe, after
She
that
did.
happened. Um, just that it was it was controversial. I watched it a couple times. I don't know which way of the fence I was going to go on that, but I could
I could
as a coach, I'm going to side with the coach. You know what I mean, Eric?
I gotcha.
You're a ref. You're a ref. You're a certified ref.
My certification has technically slipped. It's been a few years since I renewed, but
For the sake of the
for the
show,
sake of the
Eric,
show,
let's just go with certified
yeah, I know.
ref,
I got
Eric.
yes, sir.
You're killing me. Okay.
Saying because I think if I looking back on that, I think I was actually on the side of the player and the coach, but
Okay. So there's some spilt blood between these two teams. This is going to be a great one. you said Friday night. This is going to be a great one when they meet up in the semifinal. So they're on opposite ends too. Is what I'm making out of this. I could be wrong because it looks like it might be just in um, uh, alphabetical order. So, sorry. Uh, but another sneaky good team out of this sectional, Eric, is a team that's over in Wausau, um, Wausau West, coached by one of the greats, won a couple state championships at Wausau Newman, Tom Weinkoff. Guy knows how to win games. He knows how to win big games, and he knows how to coach one game at a time. So I would not sleep on Wausau West to make a little bit of noise in this thing. They're sitting at a 13-8 record, I believe, or 13-7. They're averaging a stellar um, 55 points a game. So wouldn't sleep on them. Flip it over to the other side, Eric. Let's go to the other side with the sectional final game at Manitowoc Lincoln, the semifinal games at Green Bay Southwest and Germantown. Now remember that name, Germantown. That team's 17-4. There's another sneaky good team that's kind of been playing its way in with Nina in Hortonville. They've also got a coach that is a two-time state champion at Appleton North. Okay, that's Kakana, the Kakana Galloping Ghost. There, they're sitting at 16-6. Okay, Menominee Falls 14-5. This side of the sectional is tough. Green Bay Southwest is at 14-7. So there's some higher ups when you're talking about this side of the sectional. It doesn't seem as one-sided about who could go. Okay, one name: Divine Savior Holy Angels.
That is that the Enrique Ogumwale school?
Exactly, Eric. All right. Now they're a mediocre 10-11, but they play in a tough conference. Now the FRCC, the FEA, the FEA is a tough conference. Uh, Probably the best conference in the state when you're talking about three teams at the Division One level that are state ranked. Okay, Kakana might have slipped out now because they're going through the meat grinder right now in teams they're playing. They lost a tough one to Fond du Lac. So Fond du Lac's a team at 12-9 that could sneak up on you. But that Germantown team, Eric, there's a girl on that team that's going to UConn.
Another one?
KK Arnold. KK Arnold's going to UConn. Yes, she is amazing, Eric. Okay. So between these two sectionals, there's not only two sectionals, there's not only a boatload of Division One ranked teams, but there's also two UConn committed basketball players in these two sectionals, Eric. So don't sleep on these two. These two are the ones that are closest to us. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna say, Eric, I'm jumping on a limb that the two UConn girls are gonna lead their teams to state.
Well, Justin, I don't think that's got to be a pretty strong limb, given that you and I are both sizable gentlemen. But um, I don't. I think that's absolutely. Nothing you said can steer me off of that. I really, as a like I said, just someone who's not as close in tuned to the high school athletic world, especially when it comes to the basketball world. You've talked me into it, where I'm going to be paying attention and seeing what happens and trying transpires out of this. Very excited to hopefully to get to go sit in that Resch Center with you and Dan and watch some great basketball and have some good
Yeah,
company.
Eric, I'm gonna have to. This is a family show, but I'm gonna have to break it to you. I am not gonna make the state basketball tournament this year.
No.
I am going to make sure in life that I will never have children again at that point in time. So I will be doing the March Madness old man thing, sitting in my chair watching basketball.
All right.
So I kept that about as PG as we can be on our new Back to the Roots show.
It took me. I had to read between the lines. I got you now.
Okay. So now we're on Division 2, Eric.
All right, let me scroll down here.
I'll chat a little bit. We've got two good sectionals that with some local teams. The first one with the semifinal.
At this. Let me pick the first one. I know the team that you're going to talk about first because as our friends over at Wiz Sports have them ranked number one, that being the Notre Dame Tritons.
Yep. 20-1, Eric. 20-1. Gracie Gresch. They've got some great Sammy Bayer. They've got some great players, man. They, Coach Rhodey's. She's just lit it up there. She's won state championships. They're a force that is unstoppable right now.
Well, let me just divulge some stats here because I you have all the numbers and stuff on your side, and I want to get involved in this mix too. They are a team, Justin, that's averaging as a team 80.3 per game.
Yeah.
And this is a program that I do have some familiarity with. As the class of 2014, Justin, was one of the better classes to watch at state that year, where that was multiple Green Bay commits, whether that be Jessica Lindstrom in the Division One championship game,
Mm-hmm.
who is now playing overseas and doing her thing and kicking butt overseas. You have Allie LeClaire, the Notre Dame product, who went on to have a great Green Bay career and is now in the coaching ranks at, I believe she's at Evansville, but I don't want to be quoted on that. I'd have to look at her Facebook as I'm doing this, but
was it Eastern Illinois?
it might be. That sounds, yes, you are correct. Eastern Illinois. So yes, she's an assistant women's basketball coach at Eastern Illinois, going
Follow
through
Coach
ranks.
Ballant.
Correct. She had been a former assistant coach at St. Norbert, has the degree from Green Bay, has that program, a school that my wonderful fiance, Shauna, Secretary Shauna, is technically affiliated through in that great school system in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So the Notre Dame Tritons, 80.3 a game, making 31 threes a game. They've scored over the century mark. They've scored 106 in a game. They most recently crushed the Manitowoc Lincoln. I think they're the Ships. I don't know exactly what they are. But
you're on a roll right now, brother.
91-25. They face Sheboygan South, a area that I am familiar with due to Secretary Shauna. They are going to roll past Sheboygan South, who is 1-15 in the Fox River Classic. That's all I got.
All right. They just went to Hortonville and beat Hortonville. That's the game you should be talking about. That was an outstanding game. I believe the final score of that game was 72-66.
Yeah.
That came down to free throws at the end. So that's the game. That was the game that prepared them for their state run. It's not going to be quite easy now, Eric. In their semifinal, in their little sectional, they've got to go through an 18-3 Fox Valley Lutheran team. They got to go through a 17-5 West Appear team, and a couple sneaky good teams here that I do not think will touch them or give them a test, but could make some noise in their sectional. That's a team that we featured on our last episode, Marinette, who's at 15-7. Just a stellar season for the Marinette Marines, and Menasha Blue Jays at 12-7. So this is a sneaky good sectional.
Yeah,
Now
absolutely.
on the flip side of that, now Eric, on the bottom side, if you look at that, there's one team you got to watch. There's one team you got to pay attention to. They're a state powerhouse. This sectional final game at Menasha, you better buy tickets for it now because these two teams are going to meet no matter how it goes down.
Well, Justin, I do not have the sectional matchup in front of me because you didn't provide me as the host and writer of the show. You didn't provide me with that.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going
You
to tell you.
tell us, Justin. Speak it.
Beaver Dam, Eric.
That was my guess.
With
I'm looking
Coach Tim
Sister
Chase.
State.
They've got a girl that is that's going D1. the other Wilkie girl. Now, Maddie plays at UW Madison. She's lighting it up there, coming off an ACL injury. This is really her first year in college. She's she's a part of a program that's progressing themselves very well. I don't think a fan that's watched the Madison program should be disappointed with the direction in which it's going. Now she's going, I believe it's to South Dakota, just straight South Dakota. Um,
She is going to the
she
University of South Dakota. She
she
had
just
offers. She had offers from Butler, Green Bay, IUPUI, Milwaukee, Montana State, Nebraska, Omaha, North Dakota, Northern Illinois, South Dakota State, or no, that's not South Dakota State. St. Thomas, Minnesota, and the University of Alabama, Birmingham, UAB, and she chose to go to
now.
South Dakota.
You know who the head coach of South Dakota is?
I should, but I don't off the top of my head.
Former UWGB assistant coach, former UWGB player. She played overseas pro for a couple of years. Kayla Teschlag?
Oh, yes, you are correct.
I don't think that's her last name anymore, as she's married. Um, uh, Great coach, great young coach. Was with the last staff at Madison. She took a job at Drake after that job fizzled out. She took a job at Drake, lasted 1 year there, and got the head coaching job at South Dakota. So good for
Kayla
her.
Carius now.
What is it?
Kayla Carius.
Yep, yep.
Carius. Sorry,
And
I'm
and
butchering
her
the pronunciation guide. Carius.
and her husband is a basketball coach also. Um, so now we're going to touch on that. So we have established that the sectional final game in Menasha is probably going to be Notre Dame at 2001 and Beaver Dam. Do you have their page up right now, Eric?
Beaver Dams?
Yeah.
I do have their page up. They are currently. I gotta go back to home. I had their stats pulled up. They are currently 19-3. They are averaging 51 points a game. They have made 157 threes. They've had a high score of 96 points this year. They are led in scoring by Natea Donaldson, a freshman at 12.3 points per game. Second to Gabby Wilkie at 11.8, and a third double-digit score in, oh God, that's a heck of a name. Bella Reicher, I'm going to go with as the guest here, and she's a 5'9" senior.
So that game is going to be a heck of a game, Eric. You should probably talk to your employer and see if you can get that game on the radio on 95.5.
I'm going to go on record saying I don't think that'll happen, but we'll see what we can do.
It's a try, right? It's a try. Now, a couple local teams that are going to play in sectional 1 on the bottom side of that. The semifinal game is in Mosinee. Got a couple teams that could make some noise. Shawano is sitting at 9-11. They're probably looking. This sectional, Eric, is not that stellar. Okay, so they're probably looking at getting a home game or in the first round at 9-11. And New London at 17-2, they will push for the 1 seed with Lakeland. Lakeland has a D1 commit in the Olamet girl. They will be a force to reckon with in their semifinal sectional that will be played at Mosinee. So that covers that. That covers D2 for us, Eric.
Real quick, I got to shout out a team not necessarily local to the greater Green Bay area, but a team that has a Green Bay tied to it, and that being Monona Grove, who was formerly coached by Max Etheridge, who was a Green Bay student and is now in the college ranks of coaching as well. Shout out to Max. Monona Grove ranked 9th in the state of
Very good.
Wisconsin. They also representing my cousin Jeremy Fisher, where his family and him are currently hailing from and playing in their basketball program, the youth basketball program.
So we'll root for the Monona Grove Blue
There's,
Jays,
there's
the
something blue.
Eagles,
I have no idea.
Eagles,
They're blue and they got, yeah, I'm gonna call that an eagle.
Golden Eagles, Blue Eagles.
Sure. All right, let's flip to Division 3, Justin.
Division 3.
Let me take a look here. Let me lead this off because I'm really good at this leading these things off because a lot of
You're doing
the
great.
northeastern Wisconsin is very well represented in the upper tier of every single division in girls high school sports. And we're gonna start off with the Freedom. Are they the Freedom Irish? Fighting Irish?
Freedom Irish. Freedom
They are
Irish.
at 20-1 this year, Justin. They are averaging 64.1 points a game. They've scored the century mark at 100 points. They average 17.3 assists, 16.7 steals per game. That can't be. Yeah, turns out it is. They are led by, that's a name and a half. I'm going to skip it over. They're led by Sadie, scoring 16.2 points per game. Number 2 guard. She is committed to Division II Winona State University. I'm going to say that Jamalowitz, but I am not confident in that name. They are the number 1 team in Division 3 and in the greater Wisconsin area. They are in the Northeastern Conference, which features that Marinette Marine team, which features Luxembourg Casco Spartans, I think. O'Connell Falls also in there. Little Chute. A great conference. Wrightstown, Fox Valley Lutheran. Go ahead.
Fox Valley Lutheran at 18-3. That's a great take, Eric. Freedom Irish, they were the state runner-ups last year. They are the heavy favorite coming out of this sectional. Not really anybody that's going to touch them, Eric. You got an Amherst team that is traditionally pretty strong in girls basketball. They're only 8-13. Peshtigo at 12-7 will not fight with them. Wrightstown, who they've probably smoked a couple times this year, at 14-7, they're probably looking at a 2C. Xavier, who's played a really tough schedule, but only sitting at 7-15. So this side of the sectional up here, Eric, seems like it might be a bit of a runaway for the Freedom Irish. On the flip side, one of the teams that you got to watch, not necessarily close to our area, but the team they lost to in the D3 state championship game. This semifinal game is played in Waupun, and that team is Waupun. Waupun has, they lost. Their top player went to Illinois State last year, or this year. So that looks like it could be a close matchup coming through at state again. Not much real else to talk about here in
Not so fast. Not so fast.
He got me on not so fast.
I'm going to hit you with a Elite Corso not so fast, my friend, because there is a school at the number 9 ranking in the state of Wisconsin in Division 3 that is a local tie. That is a team that broke the Gillette Tigers' hearts in 2009, and that being the Brilliant Lions, who are at 16-4, the 9th ranked team in the state. They are 17-4, Justin. They have averaged 55.2 points per game in the Eastern Wisconsin standings. Coming off a win over Valders, they've had a high score of 70. Their leading scorer, Megan Schumann, 16.1 per game. And she is also a commit to Winona State.
Great boys basketball program, great girls basketball program. The Brilliant Lions might meet that Freedom Irish team in the sectional final. Where's that game going to be played, Eric? I'll tell you right now, that game is going to be played at Denmark.
Woo.
Okay? At Denmark, and it's going to be all Freedom Irish, Eric. I'm going to take the Freedom Irish to go to state.
I'm not going to test you on that, but I had to throw in the not so fast because it's a team that very some Gillette ties to it. The team that one of the closest times that Gillette ever got to state. It was a 34-31 final where Brilliant was able to knock off Gillette, who went to the entire third quarter without scoring and ultimately took the L in that game and missed out on a trip to state in 09.
You wanted to use that one pretty bad, didn't you? That not so fast.
I saw that, and it was just ruminating. I thought you were going to skip over him. I'm like, oh, here we go. I've got this queued up.
He's handing this to me. All right, are you ready to go D4?
I'm gonna say yes, but looking at these rankings, you're gonna have to carry the load on this one, because
There's like
I'm familiar with some of these teams. There are some very big powerhouse names I'm seeing, none of which are local by my estimation, with maybe one exception. But I will let you take it away, Justin.
ooh, Eric, you are very wrong. Okay, Division 4 is probably the sectional in which some of our local teams that we cover or that are near and dear to us um, reside in. That being the semifinal, uh, the sectional two, one semifinal being played at Crivets, the other semifinal being played at St. Mary Catholic. Um, the Crivets semifinal, specifically being close to us, a lot of teams in our area um, that are in this. This is a 1 through 5, a hotly contested uh, um, seeding meeting that would have been if it wasn't automatic seeding. Um, you've got 3 conference champions in this sectional. You've got Bondwell at 17-4. You've got Crandon at 18-1. You've got Michigan at 15-6. Coleman at 16-3. O'Connell at 16-6. And then when you're talking about the next tier of teams, you're talking about a Shiocton team that's upset O'Connell at 10-10. Southern Door at 11-10. Menominee Indian at 10-10. And the Kiwani team at 7-13, that's not going to get a home game in their first round, but just beat O'Connell by 10 in O'Connell. So this sectional is a tough one. Um, Bondwell played a horrendously difficult schedule at the beginning of the year. They really challenged themselves. That's where most of their losses came from. One conference loss to Wittenberg Burnhamwood. They're going to share the conference title with Wittenberg. Um, at 17-4, I think there's a real battle for the number 1 seed in this sectional, and that is between Bondwell, Coleman, and Crandon. Um, Crandon having the best record of 18-1, but not necessarily playing a very tough conference. Um, they have beaten Wittenberg, which is a feather in their cap, but they did lose to a D5 team. You have Bondwell that's played the tough schedule, the tough conference. That might get the nod. In Coleman, who's taking care of business, they've stepped out. They've upped the value of their non-conference schedule. They beat a very good Marinette team in Marinette. So they might vie for the number 1 seed. This is a tough sectional. I think O'Connell at 16-6 gets the 5 seed. Michigan at 15-6 gets the 4 seed. So top 5 teams are some decent teams. I think it comes down to uh, how that works out. I think a 2-3 matchup between Coleman and Crandon, wherever that game is played, is probably going to, I think it's probably going to be in Crandon. Okay, so I think Bondwell is the team that's going to come out of this sectional. They're going to play in the sectional semifinal game, and it might set up now, Eric, a rematch in the sectional semifinals against St. Mary Catholic. Okay, this is not only a rematch of a rematch, but these 2 teams played earlier in the year in Bondwell, and St. Mary's got one out from them. That's going to be a good game. But don't sleep on Wittenberg Burnhamwood, who's in that top sectional against St. Mary Catholic. That's going to be one heck of a regional final game if that happens in a
Well,
1-2 matchup.
I'm going to interrupt you
And
quick, Justin, because I have a bone to pick then with the coaches poll of Division 4, because none of these teams are on that, and you've talked me into that all 4 of them should be on there. But a St. Mary Catholic team that you had mentioned, the Zephyrs, they are 20-1 on the season. They have scored 62.9 per game. They have a season high of 83. They are led by a 3-headed monster of Chloe Vogel, Emily Vogel, and Audrey Norville, all averaging double digits, with Chloe Vogel leading the way at 17.3. She's a senior who does not appear to have any college uh, recruitment on with sports, but a team that I'm very familiar with, and very much could lead the way in that sectional as well. Back
The
to you.
sneaky, the sneak, the sneaky good team in that one is Auburndale. Okay,
Another powerhouse of those. We're talking some teams here. Not to interrupt you, but that 09 run for the Gila Tigers girls basketball team. They faced Amherst. They faced Auburndale. They faced the Mountain and ended up losing to Brilliant. And that's back when they were D3. Now they would be D5. That team would have been incredible. Go ahead. Back to you, Justin.
14-7. They just beat or just played. I think they split the season with the D5 state champions in last year's season in Assumption. They are going to be a couple games back in the conference, but that conference is tough. You're talking about Edgar team that's going to be tough. You're talking about Assumption that's tough. Athens that's tough. That is a conference that is every bit as good as the CWC. So that might be the sneaky good team to come out of it if it ends up with a 2-3 matchup between Wittenberg and Auburndale. That would be a good one to go watch. That one might be an eye popper. So I'm going to go with the sectional final again, Eric. Sectional final to go to state at DC Everest. Okay, I've got St. Mary's and I've got Bondwell. Got to go with Bondwell.
Oh,
Got to go with Coach Jerry Ranke. He's my guy. I like Coach Jerry Ranke.
couple more shout outs here for the Division 4 program. Got to go with those powerhouses that are going to be there. Neilsville, always good. Cuba City, always in the conversation. Some of those teams there. Aquinas, I believe that's Lacrosse Aquinas, at 19-1, the number one team in Division 4. Which brings us, Justin, to your former stomping ground, Division 5. We had our team of the week, the Sevastopol Pioneers, who are the number 4 team in Division 5. Take it away.
This one is dear to my heart. I've won this sectional, and in fact, our home city here, Eric, is listed as the host site for the sectional semifinal game. Got two stellar teams now. Leona Wabinos just took a couple on the chin. They went to 16-5. Coach Andrew Harrison has them playing good. He's played Assumption. He's went to O'Connell and beat O'Connell. Beat Crandon. So he's going to share a conference championship with Crandon. They're going to be the 2 seed. Sevastopol's easily going to be the 1 seed. The way it looks right now, 2 teams have opted to cancel their season, so the first 2 seeds will get a bye, which is big. Proud of a good friend, a place that I've coached at in my past, Lena at 16-3, Niagara, good friend of Carl Lemeru at 16-4. They'll fight for the 3 seed. Looks like that might go to Niagara. So it'll probably between those 3 teams. You've got Suring at 12-9, 3 Lakes at 12-8, and really it just kind of falls off there. Gillett is 13-7. Gillett is probably going to get a home game the first round. They're looking at a 5 seed. So Florence is at 13-6. They might get a 5 seed. It's those top 5-6 positions in this sectional are really, really, really good, but they have nothing. I think Sevastopol is a state championship contender. The way that they're playing basketball right now, the way that they're coached with Coach Ben Ricola, I think they are state championship contender. With that said, they have to go through a buzzsaw on the flip side, on the top side of their sectional final that will be played in Rhinelander, which is a long ride from Sevastopol, from Sevastopol to Rhinelander. That might get switched. You're talking 4 hours, Eric.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
That's what I would call a hike and a half.
Yeah. So this semifinal on the top side is played at Athens, and we're going to be quite honest with how this is going to go. Assumption is the heavy favorite. Athens is a heavy favorite. Edgar is a heavy favorite. But the team that is kind of getting lost in the fray, I believe they kind of just jumped down to D5, um, which is kind of surprising to me. Uh, is Iola Scandinavia, Eric? They're at 15-4. They play in that daunted CWC East. Um, they're just they've played well, and nobody's really talking about them. When you talk about the conference that they're playing, bonded well. Shyacht and some of the other teams, Wittenberg, that we've talked about, they are going to finish third in their conference. Think about this conference right now, Eric. The top 5 teams are 17-4, 17-3, 15-4, 10-10, 10-10. So 5 teams with at least 500 records. Iola's 9-3 in conference. Now they've just dropped. They had to have just dropped uh, because they're at an enrollment of 193. So they might be a sneaky good team to come out of that D5 top bracket that nobody's talking about and upset one of those 3 teams of Assumption, Athens, and Edgar. Um, Other than that, Eric, I think we've nailed down a lot of our area teams that are going to come through and play for a state championship here coming up. One team that is this team is really close to our sectional. They've went to Coleman this year and beat Coleman, which Coleman is a pretty good team. Um, they're in the sectional 4. This semifinal will be played at Central Wisconsin Christian. It features Green Bay NEW Lutheran, a Hilbert team, Marion Oneida Nation, Stockbridge, some teams that might be within our area. But the team that we are going to talk about that just recently got their state championship head coach back on the sidelines is Allison Fett. Um, don't know that that's still her name. I think she might have gotten married. Is Lord's Academy out of Oshkosh. They might take. They are back to their powerhouse ways in girls basketball. Set up a good run for them to see if they can make it back to state under Coach Allison.
Awesome.
And that is it, Eric. That is it. We have covered all 5 divisions. Of which we think are close enough to us. We're going to look forward to potentially a Nina Hortonville matchup down the road in D1, right? That could be awesome. A Kakana Germantown matchup on the other side of that sectional, what could be a great matchup with Fox Valley Lutheran. And who's my other team in this? Oh, Notre Dame, Eric. And then that's just the semifinal game. In the sectional final, Notre Dame and Beaver Dam. Just to recap some of these, that's going to be a great sectional final game. In D3, Freedom's probably going to run gauntlet until they meet your brilliant Lions.
Do not call them my brilliant lions.
You threw the bone at them, Eric.
I not so fast them because I know that they're good, but I will not accept them as my team.
Okay, so we're gonna go. We're gonna go with Freedom and Brilliant in the sectional final there. Okay. Now we're gonna jump to D4. That's a gauntlet. We're gonna go St. Mary Catholic against Bondwell, Eric, in the sectional final to go. I believe the team to beat. Now this team is outstanding. They're in the sectional 4, so you wouldn't have to worry about these guys until you get to state. I believe it is Laconia. Yeah, this is the team that had like 4 freshmen last year on their team. You remember this team?
I do.
Yeah. Coach's daughter was, they're just spectacular. Then I've got sectional winner, Sevastopol, going up again, Eric, I'm going to shock you. I'm going to say
Like,
Iola. I'm going to say Iola Scandinavia comes out of this sectional. They beat Assumption, the reigning state champions in D5. They beat Athens. They beat Edgar. They come out. They upset all of these teams as probably the 2 or the 3 seed, and they're going to beat them, and they're going to play Sevastopol to go to state. And they might beat Sevastopol because they played. We're talking about conference toughness now. The CWC is not a match against the Packerland. The CWC far outweighs the Packerland. So this year to say that. So that's it. Those are my picks, Eric. What say you?
I have totally lost track of who's out playing. Go Sevastopol. Go Notre Dame. That's what I'm gonna say.
All right, my friend. And with that, I think we're out. I think we're done. I don't know what could I have possibly said that we can't look forward to.
It's almost March, man. That's all that matters. The road to
Right?
the road to the Resch starts and ends with the Back to the Roots show. Courtesy of Justin, courtesy of Eric. That's episode 2. We're out. See ya.
Peace.